But this should not be misconstrued that everyone should receive the same amount of pay, regardless of their competence. Hierarchies are therefore a consequence, but not a bad consequence. Yes, the person that produces the best results will be promoted and receive benefits. But since she is the best person for the job, the company and everyone in it benefits. Of course, this ideal hierarchy can be corrupted. There also should be there's a bad consequence if those at the bottom of the hierarchy are abused and feel that they are being taken advantage of. For the Marxist philosophy to work, it required an extreme authoritarian regime. Here are the 5 pillars of totalitarianism. 1. The official ideology that is supposed to be followed by everyone. 2. It's a single political party, the elite group, usually less than 10%. 3. Control of all means of armed combat. 4. Monopoly of media. 5. System of terroristic police control. These are the 5 pillars followed by Marxist. During the Soviet period, from 1900 to 1987, up to 110 million citizens died from genocide, according to R.J. Duhamel in his book, Death by Government. Other scholars of the period put the death between 60 million and 110 million. Genocide is defined as intentional killing of the unarmed or disarmed by government agents pursuant to government policy or high command. It ascribes to absolute power and an absolute ideology, i.e. Marxism. This was the policy in the Soviet Union. Besides democile, even more died from starvation through projects of social engineering. Descendants were sent to the gulags between 950,000 and 1,200,000 died due to starvation, disease, exposure, and overwork. The Great Purge, 1937 to 1938, over 700,000 were executed, often beaten and tortured. Russia has emerged pretending to be a democracy, but still suffers the aftermath of that disastrous period. The other atrocity perpetrated in the name of Marxism was China under Mao, the People's Republic. Tens of millions of people died. This was in part due to land reform. Under the Great Leap Forward, coercion and systematic violence was used as its foundation. One of the most deadly mass killings of human history in China, with 25 million people killed or tortured to death. Estimates of up to 77 million died during the Great Famine. The communist regime in Ottawa is still pursuing ethnic cleansing of populations opposed to them. Other communist regimes have similar consequences. Vietnam, North Korea, Bulgaria, East Germany, Laos, Ethiopia, and Colombia, to name a few. Of course, all the above atrocities are denied or at least not acknowledged by the ideologues proposing radical Marxist solutions. They think that if they were in charge, such atrocities would not happen. No, the problem is with the underlying policy, not with the bad people that carried out the policy. Another egregious aspect of communism countries is the state control of the judicial system. The fate of anyone opposed to it is subject to the whim of the state, not their innocence or the evidence in any so-called crime. This is fundamentally opposed to a democracy which is predicated on the separation of the judicial system from the state, i.e. everyone has the basic right to a fair trial based on evidence. There is a separation of power between the USA, for instance, when it was formed. There was a separation of power between the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. They are kept distinct in order to preserve abuse of power. This should provide checks and balances when applied correctly. However, it seems to be eroding as more and more power seems to be heading to the executive branch. Firstly, the president can veto a bill put forward by the legislative branch. Also, since the president is the commander-in-chief, he can theoretically declare what he likes to be as a national emergency and proceed almost unilaterally. This is, of course, an abuse of power, as this was originally meant to be invoked only in the state of war. Just one example of this happening is when the U.S. executive imposed crippling tariffs on steel and aluminum to disrupt the long-standing agreement between Canada and USA. In the name of national security, this is observed as Canada is part of NORAD, the agreement to defend North America, has fought alongside the USA in World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, and has by and large a military equipment that is incompatible with the USA counterpart. This was implemented to blackmail or coerce Canada into signing a new North American trade agreement with the USA to the benefit of USA. This was despite Canada buys more steel from USA than the other way around. There's still one salvation which democracies have. That is free elections, when citizens can vote the bums out every 5 years. This may not evoke real change, but does mitigate the tyranny of the communist and dictatorial states. The governance in the West is going down the wrong path by adopting Marxist thinking, i.e. the right of the group over the rights of the individual. Equity of outcomes, power concentrated in the executive without necessary checks and balances. How can this be solved? By living outside the box. End of part 1b.